Over 2,800 people have made it into the 2 Comma Club by making at least $1 million in their business. And you get the opportunity to understand exactly how it is that they have done it on an individual by individual basis through this podcast. If you're interested in learning more about the tidbits and advice that they have, then you should consider subscribing to the 2 Comma Club newsletter, where you'll get daily updates and advice on the podcast and the things that we are learning from the individuals who have made at least $1 million. Just go to 2ccnewsletter.com or click the link in the description down below and subscribe.
I think I made the biggest mistake. I don't want to say it's the costliest mistake, but it's the one I see repeated most often by other people, that if I've learned something that's worked for me and hasn't, it's sell the thing before you build it. That's what I did with my course. But then after years, people were like, Aaron, we want more marketing. I need more new patients. So I built a course on how to, I built a course on, it was like 6 modules of marketing and how to set up marketing systems so you can generate new patients on autopilot every month. And what I realized was it was too hard. Like, they didn't want to do the work. I'm like, okay, you want the business I have? This is the work it takes. Like, this is how to get a lead magnet and set up the email autoresponders, and how to, do all the things to make this on autopilot. And it was just like, it was too much work. I see people come in. I've had people where it was really hard to help, where they're like, I spent $50,000 on creating this course and I need your help. And I'm 3 months in, they're like, well, I haven't made my $50,000 back. I'm going to quit. I wasn't the one that made the decision to spend the $35,000 to record this course that I was helping her sell, which I had helped her get like 50 people in and build another program to bring in an additional 70K. So what they've done is they've taken their ego and gone and get professional photographers and the lighting and all the things to build out this beautiful thing that no one wants to buy because they didn't figure out if their audience wanted it or not. I mean, I've done the same thing.
As have I, multiple times.
But, like nowadays I'm like, sell it first. And I've done that since and made a lot of money from that strategy.
We are here today joined by Chris Davison, myself, and Aaron LeBauer. And is that how you say your last name, Aaron?
Yep, LeBauer. That's it.
Perfect. I love it. That's a beautiful last name. What is the heritage behind that?
It's a little French and German, but my great-grandparents were Polish, and so I think whatever the name of their town in Poland was, that was the closest name that they got when they came through Ellis Island.
I love it. That's really cool. Heck yeah. So where are you out of now?
I live in Greensboro, North Carolina. And it's where the denim used to be made for Levi's 501 blue jeans.
Nice. Yeah, that's really cool.
So were
you born and raised there?
I was born here, and then I went to high school here, and then I went to college at Duke, and then I moved out of town, and I spent 10 years out of state, and then moved back about 19 years ago, and been here since. Got it, went back to school, had a family, built some businesses. Now my kids are 12 and 14, so yeah, I'm not moving for a while.
That's awesome.
I
love it.
You said you built some businesses. What's your background in business? What kind of businesses you built? I'm always curious about stuff like that.
Yeah, I started my first business in 1999. It was a massage therapy practice.
Okay.
And I was out in California, and then so I did that and built that in San Francisco, and then I restarted. I moved down the coast to San Luis Obispo for a year, and then moved here and started a massage practice here in 2004, 2005, when I moved here in that winter. And then I went to physical therapy school. I have a doctorate of physical therapy degree, and then I started a physical therapy business. And that business is not a traditional PT practice. We're out of network and cash based. And so people ask me, how'd you do that? Because that's not typical. And then I built a coaching business with it. And along the way, I had a clinical education business that started and fizzled because my partner and I didn't have the same vision for it. So
I got you. I know how that is.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So talk to us real quick. I'm really interested. I'm just always curious about business. So most people I know several physical therapists. I mean, they live and die by the insurance companies. So tell us, how'd you kind of get off that niche, or even find a way to get off that niche with the insurance companies and doctor recommendations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I was doing massage therapy in California, I was doing more like I would call it, like at the time I called it structural body work, but it was more body work, and not just like fluff and puff massage and you feel good. It's like you got something that doesn't feel right. It hurts. You feel stiff. I was doing more, you might call it medical massage now. Um, and so studying a modality called myofascial release. It doesn't really matter what it is, but it's something that allowed me to really focus on people's their specific aches and pains. Like I'm a problem solver. So they come in and they said, my shoulder hurts. I'm like, well, is it okay if I spend the session on your shoulder and the areas that are connected to it rather than just do a full like relaxation thing? And most people will be like, yeah. So after doing that for a few years, I just realized noticed patients had these same comments like, Aaron, you're the first person to touch me where I hurt. I've been to see all the massage therapists, physical therapists, chiropractors, acupuncturists, orthopedic surgeons. I've had the surgery and no one's touched me there. And these aren't like complicated places to touch, like your knee, your shoulder, your neck, a couple spots in the low back where if you're a massage therapist or physical therapist or even a physician, you should know how to palpate these muscles. But people weren't getting touched where they hurt. They weren't getting they weren't being listened to, and they didn't, and people don't really have the time to do that. So, all right. So that kind of moved me into going, let me go to physical therapy to figure out, a patient would say, you've helped me so much, but when is this going to be over? What do I need to do next? I didn't know that as a massage therapist. So I'm in PT school, and in PT school, like I knew that, and I'm on my first clinical rotation and I'm seeing 4 people an hour where I can do hands-on with one person and direct someone else's exercises across the room. And I'm like, to me, it's important to put my hands on people because that's what my patients weren't getting. Yeah. Well, one day in my 3rd week of this first clinical rotation, I saw 43 patients in one day. I was there from 8 to 9:30 at night. And I realized that day I cannot become a physical therapist in this model because patients who have been coming to me already because this model has failed them, I'm not going to be able to help them anymore. So I knew I was going to start my own business. And I told my clinical instructor, I said, hey, I need to do this and do it out of network. And he said, no one's going to pay more than their copay for PT. And I was like, well, let's check in 3 years and talk about it. And I haven't heard from him since, but people at the time were already paying me $85 an hour for, massage therapy and like, help with their, problem solving and their pain and issues. And I was like, well, people pay at least another $10 an hour if I'm Dr. LeBauer. What I realized is we need to be charging well over $200 a visit. And most of my clients now are in the $225 to $350 a visit range for physical therapy. In contrast, anyone listening, when you go to the hospital outpatient PT or you go to the surgeon's office, and when they bill insurance, they're billing $350 to $600 and even $800 a visit. I've got some instances where people for 30-minute visits, a $1,200 charge. Yeah. So insurance company pays a chunk of it, but if you haven't made your deductible, you now owe a big chunk of that. So $250 per visit is really small. So how'd I get into it? It was like this experience of going, I'm halfway through school. I can't get out and do what everyone else is doing. I have to do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that niche. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. I love that. So I'm really interested. So you went from getting your practice, obviously, when did things was it kind of iffy at first with doing things differently, or did it take some time to get some traction, or how did things take off for you, really?
Yeah, it did, because there weren't really any other physical therapists that were willing to help. There were a couple. So one of my mentors, who was a physical therapist who's who I was studying with as a massage therapist, John Barnes, he was really encouraging of me, and he even said, don't go to PT school. You don't need it. But then he wrote me a letter of recommendation. And once I went through it, he was encouraging, but he didn't say, here's how you do it. There were very few people saying, here's how you do it. Our industry education, like their private practice section of the American Physical Therapy Association, their education materials were for how to start a in-network clinic. And so I kind of had to figure it out on my own. I basically took my massage practice model and added physical therapy into it. And I went to personal trainers. I went to the personal training industry to learn how to do the marketing. And specifically Bedros Keuilian, who I found one of his blogs one day. It was how to get listed in the top of Google. And I just went through and did those things. And it was like, all of a sudden people were like, oh, I found you on Google. I was like, holy cow, this works. So I did
That's
have one
amazing.
mentor who was a physical therapist, and I knew him through this myofascial release community. And he did like a short, like 3-month mentorship for me and 4 other people when I first moved to Greensboro and started my massage practice. So I was doing lead magnets and had like a direct response website and all that from that experience, but it didn't continue. So I really had to go and like figure out all these pieces on my own. Now with my clients, I'm able to get them what took me 5 or 6 years to do. I'm able to get them results like that in 6 to 8 months, which is nuts. I mean,
Um,
I've got a client right now who he's like, Aaron, I just made 95,000 the last 4 months. And the last 4 months were months 6, 7, 8, and 9, 6, 7, 8, 9 of his business. He started earlier this year, which is dope. He's doing
That's amazing.
$22,000 months, and it took me 5 years to do 15,000 in a month.
Wow.
Like, and if I would, and I calculated this with one of my, I had a business and clinical resident, and I calculated with him. I said, hey, if I was charging what you're charging now, and I look and or what we're charging now, I looked back over those prior 6 years, and I left over $1 million on the table. And Derek was like, Aaron, don't do the calculation, you'll regret it. And I was like, no, I've got to do this to prove it to you, like, you know, because I didn't have me coaching me. So yeah, it was a lot of figuring this out with the hard lessons along the way for sure.
Yeah, I
So
bet. I bet.
did you transition to coaching as a result of just wanting to give back to people in your situation, or did you have maybe an individual or a circumstance that kind of made you think like, huh, like, I found my way down this path. How do I shine a spotlight on this so others can do the same?
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of found me. I think what was happening, I can't remember the order of events, but I had these couple conversations that happened. So what I was doing was back in 2005 and 6, internet forums were still a thing. And so there were different groups would have their forums, and there would always be a business one, whether it was our professional association or someone's like education company. And people would ask me, Aaron, how'd you do this? Can you help me? I was educating them on lead magnets and charging cash and a little bit of marketing stuff. I wasn't as good as sales back then, so not as much sales stuff. And people asked me for help, and I had 2 classmates ask me for help, and I got on a call with each of them, and just here's how I did it in about an hour and 10 minutes. And then I had another woman, and she asked me for a time to chat. And she said, and at the end of it, she said, well, how much do I owe you? And I was like, well, what do you mean? She's like, well, that was valuable. I owe you something. She's like, what do you charge? I was like, I don't know. And so she said, well, I'll just pay you what you charge your patients. So she paid me $125. And I said to my my wife, or my wife at the time, who's now my ex, and I said, she taught me a lot of good lessons. And I said, you know what? So-and-so, I spent an hour with them on the phone, teaching them all the things, and they didn't even say thank you. Like, they didn't even I didn't even read anything written, just a little note like, hey, Aaron, that was great. Thanks. She said, don't give away something for free when you expect anything in return. And I was like, that's a good one. So those kind of all happened in like the same month. And so I was just like, all right, this is what I charge for consulting. And it was like $150 an hour. And that first year I did a couple one-on-ones, and the next year I knew like I've got all these common questions. So the other funny piece of this is I launched a blog, and in the same month I got a cease and desist, as well as an invitation to speak at a private practice event in Florida. And I knew I was onto something good. So that's kind of how I got into it. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I've got this thing, I need to intentionally do it. For me, it was more of like I got pulled into it.
That's awesome.
What happened with your cease and desist? What was going on there? What's the story behind that?
That was interesting. Number one, so there was a chiropractor in California who, like had a trademark, and I used his trademark in the URL. But so one of my friends is a trademark attorney for the federal government, and I called him and I was like, yo, like, what do you think? And he's like, well, you're right. This trademark shouldn't have been approved, but you just launched your blog. How much money do you want to spend to prove that you're right? I was like, that's a good point. So instead of spending 10 to 50, he's like, I can't even represent you, because I work for the government. Like, and you're my friend. I can't do that. I can advise you, and he's like, I would advise you not to spend the $15,000 to do this. But what I did, so what they really wanted was just for me to stop using the URL. And, so it was like, it wasn't pretty intense because I was like, holy cow, like someone's trying to sue me and I haven't done anything yet. But what I ended up doing was just string it along. So he had to just pay his lawyer. I just tried to make it a game for him to pay more to his lawyer. Cause I even said, hey, just pay me the $100. They're like, we'll pay for your URL. And I'm like, $12 doesn't mean anything. I was like, just send me $100, and I'll transfer the URL to you. And they were like, no, like, all right. So the agreement was that when it expired, I couldn't renew the URL, but I couldn't use it. The mistake that I made was because I was under enough stress and didn't really have a coach. I couldn't really think of this. I just turned my website into LeBauerConsulting.com because I was like, no one's going to use LeBauerConsulting.com. They can't use my last name. But what I should have done was just done the personal brand website, AaronLeBauer.com. That's what my blog should have been. Now I've got 2 websites. Like it was kind of an issue. Also at that time, you had to have a new Google account for every YouTube channel you wanted. So, like it kind of caused some issues around that. But if I could go back, I would have just done my first and last name.com at that time, and it would have solved some other future issues. But the URL was a cool URL. I don't know if I can actually describe it, say what it is. It doesn't really matter.
Right.
But,
Isn't that funny how sometimes you get a business going and get a little traction, you have something like that come up, and it's like,
Yeah.
as soon as you get going with stuff like that's
Right.
been my experience. Has that been your experience to have those kind of things happen to you?
Yeah. And that to me, I take it as a good sign. Like I know, like I've got someone telling me you can't and someone telling me come speak. I'm like, this is a good sign. And I think a lot of people take it as a sign to stop. But what I've learned is when you've got haters and trolls and people like copying you, that's a sign that what you're doing is valuable and just to keep going.
Definitely.
Yeah.
That kind of reminds me
I
of,
agree.
I think it's Dan Kennedy who said it. I could be wrong, but I believe it's Russell Brunson who quoted him. And he talked about the idea that I think it's Dan Kennedy says, if you haven't received at least one piece of hate mail or one nasty comment before noon, then you're not marketing hard enough. And like it cracks me up every time I think about it. And that's what that story reminds me of.
Right. Right.
So
what I do right now, it's when I get like these crazy comments and if I see it, like they used to bother me and I told my team like hide them from me, but now I'll screenshot them and I'll put them up on my Instagram stories and be like, you see, this is the problem with our industry. People like think that, I'm unethical. Like when it's the insurance companies are unethical, it's people like it's unethical of you to charge cash. And like, but they only see it from one direction. They don't see like there's a lot of different models. And, so I just use it as fuel rather than like as something to keep me from moving forward. Yeah.
I like it.
perfect.
So it's not like you kind of ran into consulting and kind of fell into it. So you had this resistance with the URL, and then you had this speaking engagement she was offered in Florida. How did that come about? Like, so how did things take off with the speaking? I mean, how did it even get found out? People find out about you and what you were doing.
Yeah, they found me because of what, they found me because I was helping others like through these internet forums and when LinkedIn groups were decent. I don't think LinkedIn groups are decent anymore. They're kind of crazy, but you could go and actually help people. And then, so I got this event. Somehow I think I got a recording of it somewhere. But I think it was that year or maybe it was the year after. And I knew that people were asking me all these questions and that's why I started this blog, but I knew there was something more than the blog. And I was like, I need to write a book. I was like, but I'm not good at writing a book. I was like, there's this other guy. He already just wrote an ebook on how to do this. Like it wasn't published physical copy, but I was like, I don't want to do that. I need to maybe create a course or some online thing. But I had these epiphanies and the first things that came to me were the bonuses from the course. So one of them is a digital download. It's called the Cash PT Toolkit. I think initially, I might have sold it for $37 in 2012 or 2013. And this past year, it sold 3 times for $1,000 on my website. Wow. And not because I wanted $1,000 for it. I priced it at 1,000 because I thought no one would buy it. But that's how good that sales page is. It's like, still speaks to a need. So I decided to create a course, and the course is called the Cash PT Blueprint. Cash PT is the hashtag that people were using on Twitter back in 2000, 10, 12 years ago, when there was more PTs on Twitter and it was describing practice. And so that's also how I connected with a lot of people, is through these Twitter discussions with other physical therapists. And so I created a course, and I did work with a PT who helped me. He got out of physical therapy, was creating content on YouTube and had a podcast, and John Schumacher helped me launch this program, and we sold it before I built it. And I made $5,000 in 5 days with a 5-day email launch. And I was like, okay, sweet, I can build this product. And then we raised the price, and yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So is that the coaching program that you did then?
So that was the coaching program. So that was a coaching program that I launched. So I knew I had these bonuses, and I had this moment where I was like, what do I do? And I'd gotten on a call with these like slick salesman British guys. They were like, oh, for $12,000, we can help you launch a course and sell it. And I was like, yeah, but that's a lot of money. I don't really believe in I didn't really believe in what I'm doing. I didn't have the awareness of that, but I was like, that's a lot of money for something that I haven't sold anything of. And it just seemed like too good to be true. And I was sitting there chatting with John, who had this guy who I mentioned, he had interviewed me, and he was like, well, I can help you do this. And I'll charge you, I don't know, $2,000 or $4,000 or something like that. He charged me some money that felt like, oh, that's a good, like that's worth it. If you can help me do that, like I can make that work. And he's sitting there, I'm sitting in my garage. He's like, Aaron, you have a 6-figure business easily. And I was like, no, I don't. I really, he's like, yeah, you do. And so we launched that, and that course, I sold that course I did this initial email launch, and then did a lot of sales on webinars with it. And then after a few years, I moved into not just one-off course sales, because people needed ongoing help, and I created a mastermind program. And so now majority of my revenue is through our mastermind program versus course sales, but the course sales still support like my revenue and our clients and people at different levels.
That's awesome. So is I know you received the 2 Comma Club award this past year. And so that's for one specific funnel, and was that for offering the mastermind course, or was that
Yeah. So this, the 2 Comma Club award that I recently got was for our mastermind program funnel. So it was it's like a sales page, sales letter to an application to our mastermind. And that was the one. And then 2 years ago, maybe it was in 2020, when I didn't go because of COVID. In 2020, the 2 Comma Club award was for my lead magnet, the Cash PT checklist, which moved people to a webinar, then into the course. So I've got a 2 Comma Club award for each of those pieces.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks.
Fantastic.
I love that. So looking at things with your coaching program, is it all just physical therapists? That's kind of your niche. Are you helping other doctors and other like holistic medicine or massage therapists? Are you doing that, or who's kind of your core market or your niche you're talking with?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's still about 85-90% physical therapists.
Okay.
Probably 10% occupational therapists, because they're most similar to what we do. Although I think occupational therapists are less business minded overall, but that could be my own judgment. And I just don't even really market to them. They just find me through different paths because we're more similar. Whereas chiropractors aren't really a good fit, because mindset and reasons to get into the profession and things are different. Practice patterns are very different. And then there's speech language pathologists, which they mostly don't do businesses. And massage therapists, yes, I could help massage therapists because I am one and was one. But in general, massage therapists aren't, people use massage as a stepping stone. And so they're not looking at it as a long-term career. So I've had very few massage therapists over the years, even though I am one, come to me asking me for help. Or if they do, they don't want to invest $1,000 into their business, because it's almost like they don't believe that they're going to get that back out of it. So it's mostly physical therapists. Although I've helped people and physical therapists not just grow cash-based clinics, but I've helped them grow online coaching business and online businesses, 30, 40, 50K months, doing kind of like what I do, but with different subsets of PTs and things like that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I mean, that's a serious business. I guess for you, like if somebody's what you described and talked to, obviously you talked to a lot of people in your industry.
Mm.
What's kind of the differentiator for you? What you're doing with your coaching? What's kind of your secret sauce with what you offer, what you give to people? Would you say is kind of your one thing?
I'd say the main thing that we do is not just give people the information, we give them a game plan so they know exactly what to work on now to grow their business. Usually we meet 3 times a year, and really the whole idea is I want you to have a project to make your business better and a project to make money in your business, because there's a lot to do. You can do all this stuff and get overwhelmed, but if you have a focus on what to work on, then your business can grow faster and you can be more efficient with your time, because you don't have to do everything. You just need to do the right things. And like our most successful clients stay 2 to 3 years in our program. However, there's lots of people who come through my programs that, whether it's our mastermind or the course, or even just got my book, who are like, Aaron, I'm crushing it. Thank you so much for the help. And they just there was just 1 or 2 things that were missing, and which is really awesome. But I think prospects ask me this all the time. What's the difference between your program and so-and-so's program? I'm like, I don't know. I haven't done so-and-so's program. I can tell you that, so-and-so bought my thing or went through my program at some point in the last, few years, but I don't know what's in theirs. Which is funny because majority of the people who are competition, have gotten some help from me in some way, which is fine. But people, sometimes people come like, who are you? You only just started this last year. I'm like, no, you only just found me last year.
I get that. It's funny. That is funny. That is funny. I guess, being a business myself, I mean, I don't know about you, but I learned from failures. I learned from mistakes. You just kind of, I call it failing forward. You just kind of figure it out, get in, tinker around. And so what's one of your business biggest mistakes you learned from to help you grow? Like what's one of those things that propelled you forward in your business?
Yeah, there's 2 of them. One specifically for my physical therapy business was don't count on referrals from other healthcare providers. Okay. Especially if we're not taking insurance, we need to do marketing directly to our customer, which is our patients. And so that's what we do, is we market directly to patients. So that's number 1, but most people in the audience may or may not get that. But the way to understand that is you market to the customer, not to the middleman, right? Like I'm not marketing to insurance or the physician. I need to market to the person who's ultimately making the decision to come see me and pay me money.
Yeah.
The thing in my my coaching business where I think I made the biggest mistake. I don't want to say it's the costliest mistake, but it's the one I see repeated most often by other people, that if I've learned something that's worked for me and hasn't, it's sell the thing before you build it. That's what I did with my course. But then after years, people were like, Aaron, we want more marketing. I need more new patients. So I built a course on how to, I built a course on, it was like 6 modules of marketing and how to set up marketing systems so you can generate new patients on autopilot every month. I think I spent the first part of maybe 2018 or 2019, so the first 6 months selling this thing. And I did webinars and did all these promotions. And I think I got 25 people into it for $2,500. And I think I had like 6 refund requests. And I was like, what's going on? And what I realized was it was too hard. Like they didn't want to do the work.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, okay, you want the business I have. This is the work it takes. Like this is how to get a lead magnet and set up the email autoresponders and how to, do all the things to make this on autopilot. And it was just like, it was too much work. And so then we started bundling it and I started selling the other thing and it worked better. But I see people come in. I've had people where it was really hard to help, where they're like, I spent $50,000 on creating this course and I need your help. And I'm 3 months in, they're like, well, I haven't made my $50,000 back. I'm going to quit, because, somehow the coaching wasn't the thing that got him. I'm like, well, I didn't make the decision to spend the 50K. We've made 70K, so there's another person who's like, we had made 70K in 6 months, but I wasn't the one that made the decision to spend the $35,000 to record this course that I was helping her sell, which I had helped her get like 50 people in and build another program to bring in an additional 70K, but it still wasn't. So what they've done is they've taken their ego and gone and get professional photographers and the lighting and all the things to build out this beautiful thing that no one wants to buy because they didn't figure out if their audience wanted it or not. I mean, I've done the same thing.
As have I, multiple times.
But like nowadays I'm like, sell it first. And I've done that since and made a lot of money from that strategy, but people don't want to sell.
It's a hard lesson to learn. It costs a lot, and
oh God, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the number one thing we could highlight for people is definitely hear that message and take it home.
Looking at your business, Aaron, I guess one of my things I try to look at, what am I really good at? Like looking at my business as a whole, what is my kind of superpower? People call it unique ability. I really like that one. So what's kind of your one thing or unique ability you kind of doubled down on and kind of focused on for your core strength? What would that be for you?
You mean my strength in helping others or growing my business?
Yeah, both, just both.
Okay.
Yeah, what things are you good at? You like doing?
I think the strength, the number one thing that my business does really well that most people don't see is the email marketing and the automated follow-ups that I've got. Most people are like, okay, 1 or 2 emails, totally fine. Oh, people didn't enroll. Oh, it's been 3 months. I've been running this lead magnet. No one's purchased anything from it. And I'm like, yeah, I know. It takes years. Like, someone's like, all the strategies you told me to put into place 2 months ago didn't work. I'm like, did you ask me for, to revise them with you? No. Okay. So she's like, no one who got my lead magnet became a client. I'm like, yeah, it's been 2.5 months. Like, like a couple people might, but she didn't bring in thousands of leads. She brought in, dozens. So that's the one thing that I do really well that people don't see is just this whole like email follow-up system. And really that's like how, like you come in, get my lead magnets and things like there's all these emails that you follow up. And that's how I got these 2 Comma Club awards is the follow-up. The money wasn't made on that landing page. The money was made in the follow-up behind it. The one thing I do really well for my clients and I tell people is that I can see problems. I can see solutions to problems other people can't see for themselves. And that's really what I do is because if you're in it, if you're in the dirt or in the mud, you can't see the way out. Like, or, the analogy I like is like, if you're running through the forest, you can't see, past 100 yards, but I'm like your coach in the helicopter. I can see that if you keep going straight, you're just going to keep running through the forest. If you turn right, you're going to run off the cliff after 100 yards. But if you turn left in 50 feet, you'll find the highway. It's like, I can see that and I can see solutions, and come up with kind of creative solutions if there's something new. Because that my brain with the ADD and dyslexia, it makes connections that other people's brains can't. So that's what I do for other people. And it's hard to describe, but if you know, you know.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of your lead magnet, how do you guide traffic to that generally?
A couple different ways. We do lately, we've done, last few years, majority has been through Facebook ads. A lot of it's through, when you get into my Facebook group, you answer questions on the way in, I send you an email, and then there's links to the lead magnet. So really the lead magnets, when you join the group's kind of like a lead magnet too. I drive traffic through, some organic stuff through Instagram, YouTube. Probably the majority right now of the leads come in through ads just because we've dialed in that strategy. Initially, it was more organic and, people would, when it was easier, when you could put up a Facebook post and everyone would see it, like it was much easier to do the organic online stuff. But I've got websites, all our podcasts, I've got a podcast and all those episodes are all on the websites. And so through search, people find us and things like that too.
That's awesome. That's a lot. One of the things you brought up there was, which I appreciate you letting our audience know, ADD and being dyslexic. But I really think, talking about unique ability, I think that's a superpower, really. I look at so many entrepreneurs, and I'm sure you hear the same thing. I have ADD, but look how successful and driven and how your mind works. I mean, you think that's really helped you out or been a disadvantage for you? Or how would you describe like what you have, how it's helped or been a hindrance for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a superpower. Like you described, I've described that before. It's like, it's my superpower. But it's hard because I've got a desk in the next room that's just like a big pile of like webinars basically, but no one would know. Like, it's just like, it's a big pile of stuff. And I really need someone coming to clean up after me, but I don't really kind of have that person following around all day long. But it's part of it's the drive and hyper focus on like one thing and one purpose, and then or one project. But then other things kind of get left behind, and I gotta go clean up after it, and gives me a little anxiety that I've forgotten to do things sometimes. But it's the thing that allows me to, I mean, come up with a product and a course that people are copying. I mean, it sucks that they're going to go and copy my stuff, but I have had a guy basically copy my sales page with a name of his product that's so similar that like you would think that people think that we're in business together, and he still kind of does it, and other people do it. And it's like, like I came up with these things, not because I intentionally did it, like we talked about, but because like we're having these conversations and I'm out on a bike ride or a walk or working out, and this idea comes to me. I'm like, oh, Cash PT Toolkit. I was like, oh, it's a thing. It was just a hashtag and a digital download. And then people started copying. So I had to trademark Cash PT. Like, okay, I was on the receiving end of a cease and desist. I've now had to send about 5 myself. It's not fun, but the problem is people go, oh, well, I work with so-and-so, so I must have all your information. I'm like, if you have all my information working with them, then they're doing something unethical, because we're not in business together. But I think I think people may let like what I think people with ADD, dyslexia are going to let what other people say about them, especially growing up, like affect them more. I mean, there was a time where me and 5 other kids were sat in a room with no windows and told to study harder instead of taking Spanish. It's like, but what we have to do is understand that there are ways to utilize that to see, like, to me, like see solutions that people can't see for themselves or other people can't see. And it's the creativity that I think, and the connections. I can make connections between things that don't seem similar. And people are like, oh, how'd that happen? I'm like, well, that's my brain jumps logic steps.
I love that. I love it. And I have, similar focus issues. So I totally get where you're coming from. I obviously had to get some help. What are you doing to kind of help you focus? I think it's a big topic for a lot of people with focus and clarity, and getting, and find out what your unique or superpower is, and then get others to help you with the things you're just not great or good at. How are you doing that? How did you bridge that gap from the things you're struggling with to what you're good at?
Yeah. So a couple things I do is I keep a to-do list, but I don't focus on the to-do. I judge my success by the done list and not the to-do list, because the to-do list will never end. I used to write it on my arm. I used to have in college, I had a 3x5 card fold in half that had all my stuff, and I'd cross it off. But so I still have that now with like Google Tasks, which for some reason doesn't work on my phone right now. So I have to find another thing, but it's like creating these like little things of like, how do I keep myself organized, and also having the expectation that I'm never going to get everything done. But going into the day and going, what's the one thing that I can do today that's going to move my business forward? And I'll put that on my calendar. And sometimes I won't even do it at that time, but I'll have it and I can go, okay, it didn't get done today. Let me move it to next day. Or I can break it into easier to do chunks. And then recognizing like, okay, there's no way I could post on social media if I was doing it myself. Like it just takes me too long. I get distracted. I'm just going to check a message, and I end up down like a Instagram reel rabbit hole, or somehow I find myself on YouTube. And I'm like, wait a minute, I was trying to get to Instagram. Like having other people, do the posting and processing and do these things that, whether I don't want to do it or not, like would distract me and take me down the wrong direction, is really important as well.
I think it's good. It's good to know what you're good at, not good at, and what's going to really get you off course. I get it. I do something, commit to 3. It's a simple app. It gets 3 things a day. It's really that simple. And if I get it, if I don't have that, I'm doing a ton of other things, which are busy work or things I got to do, but it's not the 3 things I wanted to get done that day. So I totally get that. It's so easy to get distracted. So that's awesome. Look at your journey. Like, what was the biggest? Like, obviously, once you set a goal, I find you get a lot of resistance. You have a lot of challenges towards that goal. Obviously, now, what are you working on now to kind of, for your business or for your clients? Like you said, one of the things I liked a lot was, sell a product before you build it. Always have a project to work on in your business and a product to make money. What are you doing now with project in your business and ways to make money? What are you doing different now?
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's interesting. over the last few years, like what people want to buy has changed. I also have more competitors. And so like my evergreen webinar doesn't sell as well anymore as it used to. I mean, there's a lot of other options. I mean, there was at one point I'd make like a couple $100,000 a year on the evergreen webinar, which was dope. Like, it's like,
That's
oh,
awesome.
wow.
Yeah.
But so what I'm trying to do, what I'm focused on right now is, one, growing my mastermind, but also really understanding like my market again, because some things have changed clearly. Like understanding like what do they want, what are their new fears, what are their new goals, because they're slightly different. There's something that I know like in my message that needs to tweak just a little bit so that it really resonates with people hard. So that's my background, like reel in my head playing. Some actionable steps I'm doing is the funnel, the mastermind funnel with the sales letter and the application, and then the strategy call. I've looked at my with my coach, who I have looked at my leads and my calls and decided we're going to do a 2-call close. So I'm finishing up like a cycle of a few months of getting that set up and working, and hand it off to another team member. So we're now doing a 2-call close. It's still got a little tweaks because I get people on there who aren't qualified for the big thing, but then I'm like, okay, do I need to do like another sales call just to get them in the small thing, or can I sell that to them in a webinar or something? So I'm figuring those pieces out. So it's a 2-call close, but then ultimately, like my big goal for me is, and I was just on a call with my financial advisor this morning, is to have, Garrett Gunderson. I don't know, I've never heard him before, but he spoke at a Black Belt and boardroom event this fall. And he was just talking about money mindset. And he talked about this concept of economic independence, which is different than financial freedom. And the way he even described it was, so economic independence is more income than expenses, but really it's more income from not I want to say passive, but not active sources, not trading time for money. So can I bring in more income from outside sources than my expenses? And so for me, it's, I want to generate $40K a month of income from dividends, or what's the other word? Like payouts from businesses that aren't Aaron LeBauer businesses. Like if I can do that, then I'm going to be like super dope. Like my income, my expenses aren't that much, and I'm gonna have a lot of fun money to play with. And then any money I generate in my coaching business can be other investments or fun stuff, build wealth, that kind of thing. So that's really like my 5 to 10 year goal is like, how do I generate cash in my coaching business and clinics so that I can have these outside investments, this almost like dividend income that's more than my expenses. Like that's really one of my goals right now.
I love that. Yeah, I love that. That's one of the reasons why I looked at a bunch of businesses and been involved in a bunch, and kind of ended up in real estate for that exact reason, just to have it to continue to go even if I'm not working at it. So I get that. That's great. I think and most people don't do that, Aaron. I think most people work and they're making money and they just kind of keep churning that. And they don't think, hey, how do I make that passive or make that a continuity program that just sticks and works for itself? And
because really that's not what we're taught in school to do. We're taught to work and retire at 65.
Yeah.
I mean, like, even this morning on one of this questionnaire my financial advisor had me do, and he's more on, he understands what I'm saying, but it says retirement age. It's like, so I'm like, what do you mean retirement age? Like, I'm not going to retire at 65. I was like, I think I retired 8 years ago when I bought my VW camper van, like a 1982 VW Volkswagen van again. Like I decided when I bought that, I bought that off of affiliate commission. I got like a $20,000 affiliate commission. I went and flew into New Jersey sight unseen, paid $15,000 for this van and drove it home to North Carolina. That was the day I retired, because now I can go anywhere, do anything I want. I mean, I've got kids, so I choose to stay here, but so what's retirement age? Like, I don't know, but that's a different mindset. When you're a business owner, we're not in this for 30 years to build a retirement and be gone and just sit on the beach. We're in it to help people and make money and do exciting things and solve problems.
I love that. I love that. So looking at like what you said, something really struck me is obviously going into school, this is your niche being physical therapist. people kind of attacking you or coming at you, obviously that just is what it is. You have resistance when you start doing things different. And I think that's okay. Well, so seeing that gap being bridged, why do you think it is? Why do you think that's like people don't want to spend the time? They don't care to spend the time to figure out what you're doing or how you're doing it. They just see you as different, so you're bad. Or what do you
Yeah,
think kind of come down to that?
I think that there's a couple things. One, it's here's how we've always done it. Two, um, like the opposite push is the younger physical therapists are coming out of school with 250, 300,000, for even $400,000 in debt. And they want to earn over 6 figures a year. And you're going to go into a traditional physical therapy orthopedic clinic, and because insurance reimbursement is low, inflation's going up, expenses are going up, they can't get that salary. And so there's a disconnect between the people that are kind of setting policies in our profession and don't want to upset insurance companies or the American Medical Association. They don't want to upset these other industries, and they want to upset doctors and blah blah blah, and they want to keep the status quo. Like there's that's creating friction. And so I come in from another profession as an adult student, and I'm like, I had higher expectations of the physical therapy profession. So I'm like, let's go do this. I tried to play the game that they want you to play and submit talks and all this stuff, but I had one accepted, and then, it took 5 tries to get one accepted, and I tried 5 more times and didn't get any. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm going to do my own webinars, and help people my own way. And there's just this like friction between reality of 2023 and reality of 1992. Like there wasn't an issue 25, 30 years ago with, it wasn't as big of an issue with insurance reimbursement. And now there is. And so the younger generation has higher expectations. I don't know, I'm 50. I just turned 50. These young kids, they want to make a lot of money and they don't want to work.
This is true.
I'm Gen X, like, it's a little different. We're like, we're going to work hard and play hard, and people just want to like play and chill. And I'm like, that's totally fine, but you have to still bring value to my business. But they don't want to get underpaid. They would rather not work than get underpaid, and then, so now there's this like push pull. And so what am I doing that's so different? It's just saying, hey, I'm a physical therapist. I'm a decision maker for your health. Like I don't need a referral from physicians for you to see me, and you don't in any state in the United States. So that means I can make a decision that's based on your health, but that's not where our profession came from. And I can market directly to my patients and not physicians, and not worry about insurance. And yes, people will pay for high quality care when they value it. But most people don't want to pay, and that's totally fine.
So I like how you said that there in the end about people will pay for, what they see the value in. So how do you kind of go about displaying the value that you have to offer to those potential customers?
Yeah. It's a great question. It's really hard. Well, because people have, if they've had physical therapy before, they have certain expectations. If they've never had physical therapy before, they have different expectations. So what we do is very much like probably what you guys do is we've got a lead magnet. I've got follow-up emails. We've got almost like a application where, hey, you can apply to talk to a physical therapist, and you can get on the phone with us, or there's another version where it's apply for a total body diagnostic, which is in our clinic. And we chat with you on the phone. It's like a 2-call close. It's like a 2-call close. We chat with you on the phone. Can we help you? Yes. Okay. We need to get you in for a total body diagnostic. And then we do that. And that's a 20 to 20-minute visit. It costs $75. And then if you decide to work with us with a plan of care, we'll apply that $75 to your plan of care. And we try to get them at the end of the total body diagnostic to enroll in a plan of care. And if you pay for your first visit or you pay ahead, then you get a discount. Or you can apply that 75 to it. And if you pay for your full plan of care, you get a discount. And then along the way, as they set an appointment, I send them an email. It says, hey, you requested an appointment at this time for this problem. And then we have a call with them. And then it said, hey, you've scheduled an appointment at this time, and you've said you got this problem. Here's where you can find us. Here's what to bring. And we're going to be helping you with your goal. And we kind of insert the goal in there. And we go above and beyond where most businesses don't do this kind of stuff. And that's where I was saying that marketing course before was way too hard. People are like, why do I have to do all this stuff? I'm like, well, do you want a business like mine or not? But I go the extra mile on like these back end systems and communicating with people what they're signing up for and what they just did, so that they know, like, hey, like, we're on the ball and we're different. Because most medical facilities won't do that. They'll actually put up a sign that says, stop, turn around, and please sign in on the computer. And then it says, for these people, sit in the right waiting room. For these people, sit in the left, but please don't talk to the person behind the desk because we're busy. And I actually have pictures at a urology office of a stop sign and that message. And it's just like, it's ridiculous.
So inhumane.
Right? But the pressure to bill insurance is so high because the things in health that help people the most is education and understanding about their body. I have a friend who's a pediatric endocrinologist. So she helps kids, juvenile diabetes and type 1 and type 2 diabetes. Like type 2 diabetes used to be an adult disease, and now it's a childhood disease. Her most effective intervention is helping these kids do standing jumping jacks daily, and they'll lose 20 pounds, and helping the parents understand that feeding them Mountain Dew for breakfast isn't like a nutritious breakfast. But she doesn't get paid for that intervention. Whereas a orthopedic surgeon will get, I don't know what they get, but they'll get paid a ton for doing a cortisone injection. And they'll do a cortisone injection just to see if, in quotes, to see if it helps. Because I've heard this hundreds of times. Let's do this injection just to see if it helps. It's not, cortisone injection shouldn't be a diagnostic thing. I can tell with my hands and movement analysis what that patient needs. And this person is like, well, I've only got 15 minutes to chat with you. You've got knee pain. We're going to do an injection. See if it helps. Call me in 2 weeks if it doesn't. Like, and they get paid for that. And that's like the dysfunction in our healthcare industry. So I don't even know how I got on that soapbox, but you pushed me down.
Well, I think we definitely asked. I think part of it is just, I think part of it comes like a sense of, for you, Aaron, is just wanting to help, in a real way and being genuine, and people really sense that. And then two, how do you do it? So then, you can't do what everybody else is doing. If you really want to help and make a difference, you can't do what everybody else is doing. And I think you obviously figured that out pretty early, and you differentiate yourself, which isn't always popular, especially in the medical industry. It's pretty set. But I like that. I think it does take time to get to figure people and know what's going on with them and get a sense. And we have a doctor friend does the same thing with holistic medicine, and he's just not popular. He's just not, but people are paying because they know that he has something great to offer and can do something different. But he's just not popular in the mainstream. And it doesn't matter what your industry is. I got a friend who's a farmer, organic farmer, and other farmers don't like him, because he's doing something different, but he knows he's doing the right thing. And so he puts himself out there. So,
Right. Yeah. I've had physicians tell me, I'd send more patients to you. I actually would send patients to you if you only took their insurance. And I'm just like, well, I can't get them the results they want if I did, because some insurance companies will pay me $38 no matter what I do for how long. And it's like, that's not acceptable. Like, I can't do that. And so it's going against the grain. It's also, people have the right to utilize their insurance benefits. Totally fine. The logical argument doesn't work, because I might say, hey, you can do this and you've got a $5,000 deductible. Yeah, of course, go in network, but you're going to end up paying for it in full, or you can come see us for $2,000, and so, but I know what you're going to pay up front, most likely. But when you go in network, you don't know until a couple months after your treatment plan is over.
That's been exactly my experience. I have a high deductible plan, and I just pay cash. So it's just easier, and I usually end up paying less by paying cash. So that totally makes sense to me, what you're saying.
I know.
But people you don't know. If you're in network, you don't know. Then you get billed, and I got a $1,500 bill for an appointment. I'm like, well, I didn't know that. I could have gone over here for $300 and got the same treatment. So, but you don't know until the billing thing comes around. So I totally agree from experience.
And it's a mess. And I think that, but what it does is it allows me to make decisions with my patient without influence of someone, like making someone else happy, whether the insurance company is going to pay or the referring provider would agree with me or not. There's a lot of pressure when someone refers you a patient to not tell the patient, I disagree with their assessment. Because if I did that, that person would be angry at me and maybe stop sending me referrals. But because the patients pay me directly, I can tell patients, like, this is what we need to do. I don't agree with these other things. I'm not going to tell people like, you shouldn't have gotten that surgery, but I'm going to say, like, I don't think this needs surgery. This just needs some time, some hands-on work, and some stability and corrective exercises. In about 12 weeks, we should be done. But people want the result now. They want a quick fix. And what we tell patients is healing's a process, not an event. But everyone wants it to be an event.
I like
That's
that.
amazing.
I like that. So just real quick, as we're kind of getting towards the end here,
Yep.
What's kind of your why, or what's your driver? I mean, John and I are real big about our why, what kind of gets us up in the morning, gets us going, why we do what we do. What's your why, Aaron? What we can let our audience know what that is.
Yeah, there's a couple of them. One, it's it's to provide for my kids and provide. I want to build generational wealth. I am also teaching them how to build wealth themselves. I'm not just going to try to build something and hand it over to them. So I want my kids to have a good experience in life and have be able to go on experiences. I also have a why of like my whole family are medical providers, and I didn't make it through into medical school. I didn't make it past the first night of organic chemistry, but I still want to help patients in a meaningful way. And then after 20 years of treating patients, I've heard the same like fallacies over and over again. I would never lift more than 35 pounds ever again, or I was told never to run again, that the arthritis in my knee or back is tearing holes in my body and I shouldn't move. And, all these things, it's just crazy. And so like my big one that I kind of realized a few years ago was it's to help save 100 million people worldwide from expensive, imaging and unnecessary surgery. Some surgeries are important, but like I said, like we don't need to do an injection as a diagnostic tool generally most of the time for piriformis syndrome or bursitis or back pain. People are being over medicalized when there's a solution. I wouldn't call it easier because like I said, it takes 12 weeks. But I've just heard these things over and over again. So I was sitting there one day, I was like, well, if people worked half as hard as me and saw half as many patients as me, how many people would they have to help? And it was something like, over the course of, if I've seen patients for 20 years, it was 10 years and it was like 5,000 patients. I was like, how many physical therapists is that going to take to help 1 million people? And I was like, oh, I've already helped that many physical therapists. So what was the bigger number was, okay, not 1 million. Okay. It's like 10 million people or 100 million people worldwide. Cause that's, helping something like 55,000 physical therapists do half as much as I've done.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love that.
I do too. I love that.
Thank you.
I love it. Well, it's great talking to you today. I guess if people want to find out more about you, obviously they want your coaching, they want to learn more about what you're doing. How can they reach out to you? How can they find you, Aaron?
Yeah, the best way is probably send me a message and follow me on Instagram, Aaron LeBauer. It's 2 A's, Aaron LeBauer with a B. Or go to Google and Google search me. If you can't find me on Google, I'd be very surprised. But that's like, just go to Google. AaronLeBauer.com is what should come up first. Yeah.
Perfect.
Awesome. Appreciate your time today, Aaron. Love what you're doing. I'm really excited about it. Get to know you more. And I just love how you're trying to do the right thing for people. And that really shows. And I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, Chris, John, I really appreciate the kind words and the invitation to come and share on your podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.